call to order the Village of Machesney Park Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for May 22nd, 2023.
Am I going now?
Sure.
Attorney Green,
Vanessa, can you rise? All right, raise your right hand. I, Vanessa Stanton, having been appointed
I, Vanessa Stan, having been appointed
to the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
to the position of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
for the Village of Machesney Park,
for the Village of Machesney Park
County of Winnebago,
in County of Winnebago,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Office of Commissioner
of the Office of Commissioner
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations
Thank
and
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right, yay. You can keep that as a memento.
Okay.
We have to do it.
Mr. Secretary, will you please call roll?
Commissioner Alms,
Here.
Commissioner Hankins,
Here.
Commissioner Klinger,
Here.
Commissioner Heideman's here, Commissioner Fluger,
Here.
Commissioner Danielewicz.
Here.
Commissioner Stanton.
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll continue. You should have received the minutes from April 24th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Communications?
No, I just wanted to remind everybody to do your Open Meetings Act training. Jay did his. I'll send you a link, Vanessa,
Star.
to do yours.
Star.
Yep.
Teacher's pet.
Okay. Item 5, variance from side yard setback requirement for property known as 9505 Plymouth Place. Carrie?
This property owner inquired about adding onto the side of his home, but this proposed addition would end up only 3 feet from the side property boundary. The minimum side yard setback in single-family zoning is at least 6 feet, so he has applied for this variance. This is a bit of a different situation because of how these lots at the end of this cul-de-sac are configured. The subject property gets more narrow towards the front of the lot, as most lots on cul-de-sacs, and the nearest adjacent structure is already about 50 feet away from this home. With the addition, it would still be about 40 feet away. So we feel that all of the reasons that we have required setbacks to promote clear air and sun and safety and all of that would not be compromised with this home addition. We're recommending approval of the variance with the one condition that the variance only applied to the one side, that southwest side where the attached garage is, for that 3-foot setback. Thank you.
Mr. Link has signed in. Would you like to come up, talk, or?
Sure. Mr. Link, I'm going to have to ask you to raise your right hand.
Yep.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your name and address for the record.
Timothy Roger Link, 9505 Plymouth Place, Machesney Park, Illinois.
Thank you.
Is there anything you can add to Carrie's report?
Not really. I mean, it's, the houses aren't very close together. There's ample space. There's no chance of like a fire hazard or anything like that. I talked to my next door neighbor, Nate Hayquist, and he's totally fine with it.
Okay. Commissioners, you have questions for Mr. Link? No. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Pretty straightforward, I think. Has everyone read and agree with the findings of facts?
Yes.
So maybe,
Oh,
we need to make findings of facts. It's
Yep.
It's required, and it's in our ordinance. What we've done for years is we have a proposed set of findings. If you disagree with them, feel free to say, I agree with most of them, but not all, and then articulate why you don't
Sure.
agree with one or the other, and then everybody will chime in.
Okay.
If you agree with the staff recommendations, we just put it in the minutes that everybody accepts the findings, and then that satisfies the statute and satisfies the case.
All right.
So
Thank you.
That's what we just did.
okay. So we're good? Okay. Roll call?
All right. Commissioner Heitem is a yes. Commissioner Alms,
Yes.
Commissioner Fluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Danilevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton.
Yes.
So this will go forward with a positive recommendation to the Planning and Economic Development on June 5th. I think it's 5 o'clock,
That starts at 5:30.
5:30. You should plan on being here. Same place,
Yeah.
Okay. June
June 5th.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Ladies.
Where'd it go? Item 6, variance from parking requirements for property known as 7864 Burden Road. Carrie.
This is an industrial building. I believe it was vacant for at least a year based on the rental listings that I could find before the applicant started leasing it and remodeling it to use it as an indoor baseball and softball training facility. Unfortunately, he applied for a village occupancy permit after leasing the space, and in addition to there being a few minor things that he needed to be repaired indoors, I could not approve this use in this location because there's not enough parking. The site only had about 6 parking stalls, and staff was concerned that once the business was open, people would end up parking along the road and on the right-of-way of Burden Road, up in the grass. And this just isn't something that we could allow. So required parking for the health club and gym use, according to our schedule of parking requirements, is equal to the maximum building occupancy divided by 3. We asked our building official what the maximum occupancy would be for this building, and he determined it to be 111 people. 111 divided by 3 equals to 37 parking stalls that should be required here. And we understand that significant area of this building is taken up with batting cages and a bullpen. And 111 people probably will never be here at a single time. We also understand that health clubs and gyms tend to have more people crammed into them than a use like this. But the health club and gym use was the closest thing relating to this use that was in our schedule of parking requirements in our code. Our code isn't perfect. It doesn't address every potential use out there. This is why we felt that this type of situation is the type of situation variances are intended for. The applicant does acknowledge that the existing 6 stalls aren't going to cut it. He wants parking to be easy and convenient for his customers, and he's already striped additional stalls on the existing hard surface here. But to fit 37 stalls here would be difficult and costly. And based on the business and the type of patrons that he'll have there, he doesn't expect 37 stalls to be necessary. That seems excessive. So he's applied for this variance. 27 stalls seems reasonable to staff and to the applicant. Staff recommends approval of this variance to reduce the number of required parking stalls down to 27 with conditions that this would require submittal of a civil site plan and a landscape plan. The expansion shall be completed by the end of September of this year. People cannot be parking along Burden Road or in the grass. And if there are ever building expansions or the use changes at this property, that may change the number of required stalls. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Filomeno, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. All right, Mr. Filomeno, can you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Filomeno, 1397 Sweet Clover Lane, Rockford, Illinois, 61107.
Thank you.
Mr. Filomeno, can you add to Carrie's report? Is there anything else we need to know?
I think she did a great job kind of covering what we spoke about multiple times and everything along those lines. My main concern was obviously getting the business open, first and foremost, and then to be told that we needed 37 parking spaces, I was like, oh, wow. I knew 6 wasn't going to cut it for sure. So then when I spoke with Carrie again, she did mention that we could apply for this variance, which I thought would be, beneficial to everybody, just to kind of give us some time to first and foremost see if it could be approved and have that maximum number or minimum number, I should say, lowered, which hopefully it does go through to that. The only thing I will say is obviously this is something new to the area. And like she had mentioned that the code doesn't reach every single use. I would love to be able to, kind of help in any way to kind of, if I can keep track of the daily number of cars that are in the parking lot at any given hour, just to kind of see maybe in the future, if more of these do arise, maybe there can be some other kind of use that's added to the code or anything along those lines. And if it's a no problem at all. It's less work for me to do. But I don't have anything to add. I just appreciate you all taking the time and hearing this out.
I have a question.
Sure.
The clientele that attend this,
Mm-hmm.
do they all drive? Most of them probably don't drive anyway. They're probably dropped off and,
Yeah, it's a lot of drop off, a lot of parents, I'm gonna run to Target, go get your lesson in or go get your practice in, stuff like that. Majority of it, like our other facility in Elgin, that's 15,000 square foot. It's got 12 batting cages. And I believe the most we've ever seen in there was probably about 100 people. And that place is even packed up pretty good. But yeah, majority of them is, hey, carpool, drop off, something along those lines. The people that do stay are usually like, hey, it's a one-on-one lesson for a half hour. Get in, I want to see what my son or daughter are doing, and then answer a couple questions, and then they're on their way.
so 27 should be.
I think 27 is definitely sufficient. I mean, ultimately, I would like to make it as big as it can possibly be within the confines of what I have now. So it's better to have and not need than need and not have. I just thought, from a small business to make it 37 right off the bat would be very harmful to my operating capital. So I was hoping that the 27 would be a good kind of meet in the middle number.
4 or 5, I think it was. Questions, commissioners?
Let me see here.
Jim, go ahead.
There's some area on the north side of the building that looks unused. The parking arrangement that's in our packet appears to have some thought put to it, but it appears pretty simplified. Are there other options that would give us more parking on the north side?
Yes, so the thing that I put was like a screenshot where I did like the iPhone, like drawing on the parking spaces. So the north side is the best chance of adding spaces in there. I know my landlord wanted to put another building up on the land where he could like store things. Granted, it's not my land, so I can't tell him no. But the north side being where if we were just to completely extend that blacktop out to the property line or the tree line or a couple, I know there's probably an encroachment line that we have to meet. If we can get it to there, I think that kind of maximizes the space. Now, if you look on the south side of that building, we kind of flirt with the flood, kind of like the floodplain. So I don't want to mess with that too much unless we absolutely have to, because the last thing I want is for it to be slippery and, kids are getting out of the car and they slip into the floodplain. And then that's just something that you really don't want to deal with as a business owner, and anybody wants to see that happen. But the north side's going to be our best option, yes.
The reason I say this is a little bit oversimplified is that typically when you dead end a parking lot like that, there's a little dimpled area, kind of like
Yeah, place to back up into.
that,
Yeah, I did mention that.
because
May I take a look at that, what he was
It's-
referring to?
it's-
Just like a little.
It's what you had
Just to
Sure,
make a
come on,
submitted.
turn up.
I don't know what the.
Yeah, just like we had talked about, a place to
Yeah,
back
something
up
like
right
back
there.
up. Yeah, so my.
otherwise the people in that last stall have to back all the way through the parking lot.
Right. So my thought was, I know the code is the spaces need to be 9 foot wide, 18 foot deep. So those 56 foot width would be, it does have a little bit more room for somebody to, if they ideally, they can pull in and then back up. So they'd be right up against the car and then back in. So then the whole back in and out doesn't have to happen. However, yes, I do understand where you're coming from. I think it's probably something that we should possibly look into adding. But that little design, it was very simplified because when Carrie mentioned I needed to provide something, I was like, okay, well, I have these ideas. Let me just put them down on my screenshot until then. But yeah, I do believe that we probably should have something to just kind of ease the patrons as they are exiting the parking lot, because it can be, a tight little squeeze down there, and I don't want anybody backing up. I mean, I know everybody's got the backup cameras on their cars now, but it's still, you're just kind of asking for a little extra and effort that's really not necessary.
I mean, I think it's great that we have something like this in the village, but,
Make it safe.
Yeah,
mean,
and
no,
I did speak with, I did mention to the applicant that this will need to be approved by our village engineer, and I made suggestions like that. These are probably things that he's gonna want to see to your actual civil plan. He didn't need to
Yeah, this
prepare a
isn't
civil
final.
plan just for
This will be
this.
subject to site review
Yeah.
and recommendations and comments, so.
What did you say the square footage of the building was?
The building?
6,000 square foot.
I'm not
Sorry, I didn't
sure
mean to
I
interrupt.
did say, but
Okay.
6,000.
Yeah,
With the size of that building, I mean, I know this is coming from personal experience in regards to these types of facilities, because my son was in those. How many like lessons and stuff do you plan on having? Because I know they can grow really quick. So my concern is how will you adjust accordingly based on the volume of students you hopefully will
right.
be getting?
Yeah, I definitely understand. So the biggest group that we will ever have in there at one given time would be a camp, a clinic, or a team training session. There are 4 tunnels, one of which is dedicated to like pitching, as Carrie mentioned. So if we were to have a team training, like in Elgin, the team trainings are usually split where it's hitting and defense or defense pitching, something along those lines. And if each team has about 10 to 13 kids on it, and if they're split down the middle, and that would basically mean we'll have 1 team per 2 tunnels. So we'll have 2 teams in there per hour. And if each one of those kids' parents drove them individually, we would run into a parking, I don't want to say issue, but it could arise that the parking could be a little bit too small. However, from the experience of coaching in Elgin and being around baseball for as long as I've been around, it is a lot of drop off, carpooling, and those sort of things. But yes, I do understand where you're coming from. It can cause an issue, but I do believe that the very, very minimal majority of our training is going to be one-on-one or one-on up to 4 or 5. The team trainings are typically in the winter where we would talk to, for argument's sake, state line sports. Say, hey, you want your 12U softball team to come in and train with us for, an hour on these days? Perfect. They'll be in here from this time, on this day, once or twice a week at most. And then there could be other organizations as well that are in there. But if we were to basically fill it out the way we would want to, run into a parking issue, it'd be good for business, but at the same time, it could be a headache and something that we are doing this for, right? So I believe that for the first year, 2 years, we'll probably never get there. I don't like to say never because you never know what can happen. But majority of it, if we ever see that it's, hey, we're kind of reaching our capacity with parking, my idea was to send emails out to everybody, hey, please carpool, please drop off, run some errands, go grab some lunch, some dinner, and then come back and scoop your athlete up once the training session is over. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry, I kind of rambled.
Yeah, you did.
Just to verify, there would be, if parking is if people start parking on Burden or something like that, there'd be violations that then would
Yeah.
prompt an investigation into possibly doing something else.
Yeah, I mean, if this gets approved with the recommended conditions and those aren't adhered to, we could even revoke his occupancy. Because right now he has conditional occupancy of this location.
Okay.
Correct.
Because we're letting him open even though we know that he doesn't have enough parking. So it's all conditional.
Is it still open for discussion for us or no?
Sure.
Okay. I guess one point I would make is excited to have you here just in the middle of the winter when you have potentially a team coming, snow removal and things like that, and then parking on Burden. It could just be a very safety issue. So
Right.
I do appreciate what the staff is doing to accommodate and kind of compromise a little bit in the sense of it. So just kind of keep that in mind too. And it sounds like you're doing your due diligence when it comes to planning ahead, monitoring. But I would just say middle of winter, just be cautious too about where they're going. But
Yeah, and I will say that as far as common area maintenance with my landlord and I, so lawn, snow removal, anything along those lines, I am responsible for paying for. He has his people that he uses, and I had mentioned, I said, the second it snows, I want salt down and I want plows out, like get it cleared as soon as possible because I want kids to get better in there, and they can't get better if they're slipping and sliding all over the parking lot. So, I mean, I definitely do understand. As somebody who grew up in Chicago, I know what it's like to try to get your car out of a plowed in area and trying to get down into your driveway when it's all slippery and everything like that. So I definitely do understand what it's like, and I will absolutely do everything in my power to make sure that that parking lot is cleared. There is no cars whatsoever along Burden Road, and there's absolutely no cars in the grass or not in a striped parking spot.
Well, if you do outroute, we have a mall you can move into.
I was looking at that when I first started looking. I was like, well, it's a lot harder to fill up, 20,000 square foot than it is 6,000 square foot. So hopefully we run across that day one time. Or, I want to move into the old, the big lots or whatever, right next to big lots.
There you go. You could bat in there. You could
All
hit a
right.
home run.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay. You can be seated for now, I guess.
Again, I just want to say thank you all for this. I really appreciate you working with me, and I am very excited to bring another business to Machesney Park, which I do really believe in is great for this area. And I hope that I can be a staple in this area when it comes to baseball and softball training. So thank you very much.
Welcome to Machesney.
Thank you.
I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Further discussion? Has everyone read and agree with the findings of facts?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stanton,
Yes.
Commissioner Danielewicz,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Fluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Alms,
Yes.
Commissioner Heideman's a yes.
So this will go forward with a positive recommendation to the June 5th Planning and Economic Development at 5:30 here. So you should plan on attending.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
all very much. And I hope I see you guys over there.
Item 7, text amendment to zoning code to add lighting standards to the commercial and industrial design standards. Carrie.
So our lighting regulations for commercial and industrial developments literally just say that lighting should be directed away from residential properties. Just recently, I've started suggesting more stringent requirements for fixtures only when the use requires a special use permit, and I get to condition it. Because we've had some unhappy neighbors adjacent to commercial land that are concerned about light pollution, and our regulations are just too vague to really be enforced. Where some people feel the code isn't being adhered to, others might disagree, and what constitutes a nuisance is different to everybody. So this text amendment proposes some lighting standards to be added to both the commercial design standards and the industrial design standards in our zoning code. These standards would only allow full cutoff lighting. This is basically a fixture where lighting is shielded from projecting off to the side or up above. It's just projected downward. This would apply to any outdoor lighting attached to an exterior wall or in a parking lot or in a yard of any kind at a commercial or industrial property. The second standard would regulate the amount of foot candles as measured at the property line where it is adjacent to residential zoning, whether it be single family up to multifamily and mobile home district. At the property line of the commercial or industrial lot, the foot candles can measure no higher than 0.2. This level seems to be pretty standard where there is residential next door, but it is more restrictive than the measurement that they allow in Rockford. They allow 0.5 there, but I suggested more stringent because you see lots of pretty lit up residential properties next to commercial properties in Rockford, and that's what we're trying to avoid. The last standard is that we want to see a lighting plan for several uses when they are adjacent to residential at the time that we're reviewing all the plans for issuance of a building permit. These uses are parking lots, car sales lots, gas stations, retail stores, restaurants, self-storage and manufacturing, or any other similar use where staff feels that it's appropriate and necessary. This plan would include a photometric plan and specifications for all the fixtures that are going to be used. And remember, just like all of our commercial industrial design standards, these would apply only to new developments or significantly expanded developments. We're not going to retroactively tell older commercial and industrial properties that they need to start adhering to these lighting standards. And I'd be happy for any questions or suggestions for this text amendment.
Does it cross over to the signs? You know what I mean? Because some signs are lit and I can't pinpoint it, but sometimes you drive by something and it hits you as you know, at night. And I
I
was gonna write it down and I
there's-
can't remember where it is.
Well, there's, I think the one, Rusty Auto Sales is one that some people mention quite a bit for being too bright, but that changed hands and I think they've made their sign less bright. Most other signs that people are concerned about are outside of Machesney Park.
Okay.
Um,
And
This would not apply to signs. no.
not to signs, okay. I know we talked about it with the lighted billboards and stuff. And I think they have standards as well that they have to comply with.
Yeah, the light should be aimed at the billboard and
Yeah.
not out.
But, I mean, some of the advertisings on the 173, 251 sign are pretty bright. I mean, when they
Oh,
change,
really?
you, like,
Yeah,
what was that?
this wouldn't apply to that.
Not to that, okay. Jim?
Before we pull a trigger on this, I'd like to bring up the subject of ComEd's lights at the intersections. I'm pretty sure that they, you know, on the corner lot at least, that the lighting standard exceeds 0.2 foot candles. Are they to adhere to the same standard? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a lot of light at an intersection. But are we putting ourselves in a double jeopardy situation?
And then they probably are
Really
lighter,
are.
but they're in the right of way.
Okay, that's-
Well, they're put in for us. They're in the right of way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are our, I mean, they're kind of our lights. They just give them to us.
But our standard proposed is to say not to exceed 0.2 foot candles at the property line. And a right-of-way line is a property line.
When it's adjacent to residential.
And we have
Well, they're all.
intersection lights
Yeah.
at residential property.
I think it makes sense for things to be brighter in the right of way.
Yeah, I think there's an
than-
argument to say they should be brighter when you're illuminating an intersection.
I
And so
agree, but
it's probably not specifically addressed, but
are we now mandating one thing for development and one thing for the village?
I personally don't think so.
I think this applies to private property and those are all public property.
And again, those are grandfathered. Right, they're there. Right, they're not going back.
Yeah, maybe even if somebody wanted to put some new lights in the right of way, I wouldn't look at this section of the code and think it
Yeah,
needs to adhere to
It's
this.
not that I disagree with it, Jim, but I don't know why a bright intersection would be, and again, I know you're looking at the standard there, but
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that somebody sooner or later is going to come along and say you're applying a double standard.
okay, yeah, okay. I see what you're saying.
And Tom, you're the one that's
I get
going to
it.
have to defend it.
I can defend it all day long. They will lose. I mean, your point isn't, although I'm not diminishing your point is good. This talks about lighting fixtures in outside structures, yards, parking lots, levels in the various districts. And we're probably all right. I mean, you can throw a word in there to say it doesn't apply to right-of-way lights, but I don't know that you need to do that.
I don't think we're gonna have any residents coming in to complain that the lights that are, I guess, at poor right away, that those are too bright, if they're already there.
Mhm.
And is this updated? I apologize, is this new, or is this updated, or is this?
This would be a brand new
This is
addition.
brand new, okay.
Right now, our commercial industrial design standards have no lighting standard.
Because I know it's come up in the past about
Mhm.
lighting parking lots, so there must have been
There's,
some standard out there.
It's in the parking section of our code that
Oh, okay,
literally just
okay,
says,
'cause I remember
can't
talking
be-
about lights.
yeah.
Okay.
but it says, and I quoted it in the staff report, let me it says stuff that's pretty hard to enforce. Let me find it. Like,
I got a question for you. So this, what do you call it, a photometric plan?
yeah.
Is that a common thing that
Yeah, they
people
don't-
get? I have no idea.
There's a lot of times that when people are asking, what do I need to submit for plans? And do you require a photometric plan? It's standard. Lots of
Oh,
Lots of
It's in
communities require.
Several
it.
of the other communities that I work with have a requirement for a photometric plan.
Must be relatively inexpensive to get done or whatever, I would
Yeah,
think.
expensive.
Yeah.
Jim might-
Yeah, the lighting vendors usually provide it.
Yeah, okay.
The section of our
So
parking.
it's just not
lot-
creating a hardship, I guess, is
No,
what I'm thinking.
they're used to it. They're surprised when we don't require one.
Mhm.
The statement that in our parking section now, it just says that lighting shall be directed away from residential properties in such a way as not to create a nuisance. That's all we've gotten to hang our hat on when we're trying to enforce this, and
Yeah.
what's a nuisance? And
Mhm.
it's not directed to me, but I can still see light, you know.
Yeah,
I think this is a good standard, as we know we have exceptions, right? And if we start getting too many exceptions, then we can reevaluate this, but I think this is a good place to start.
We good?
yeah, I like it.
Do we
I need a
vote on this
motion to
one?
approve.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Fluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes,
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Danilevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
Yes.
Commissioner Heiden's a yes, Commissioner Alms.
Yes. Motion passed. Is there other business for the good? Seeing no public, I don't think there's any public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Bye.
Don't run off.